We represent ABCP, Kawerak, and TCC, and collectively, we represent 113 tribes, nearly half of the tribes in Alaska. My name is Brian Ridley, and I'm a tribal member of the Native Village of Eagle, which is on the Yukon River at the Canadian border. I'm the chief chairman of the Tanana Chiefs Conference. TCC is a tribal consortium that serves 42 tribal communities, including 37 federally recognized tribes, and more than 18,000 Alaska Native people in interior Alaska, whose health and well-being depend on salmon stocks of the Yukon and Kuskokwim rivers. Western and interior Alaska chum salmon spend most of their lives in the marine waters under the management authority of NIMS and the Council in the Bering Sea, whose ecosystems include the Yukon and Kuskokwim watersheds. The Council has statutory obligations to enact conservation and management measures that take into account the importance of fishery resources to fishing communities, to provide for the sustained participation of such communities, and to minimize economic impacts on such communities. This includes communities on our watersheds, yet our people have not had the sustained participation in subsistence harvests, experience major subsistence economic impacts, and face a multi-species and multi-year decline of salmon stocks. In 2023, Chinook salmon harvest was not allowed and the second lowest return on record. Summer chum and had some subsistence fishing allowed on the lower and mid-river. There were no allowable fall chum harvests on the Yukon River and fifth lowest return on record. No allowable coho harvest and second lowest return on record. Tributary escapement goals were not met and international border crossing escapement goals were not met. We're facing a salmon crisis, yet you continue to allow bycatch and not acknowledge the cumulative impacts of bycatch over decades of commercial fishing. Each salmon caught could have been hundreds, if not thousands of salmon. In October, I asked for an analysis that must be transparent, inclusive of traditional knowledge, subsistence information, different values, tribal community needs and perspectives, and broad and cumulative social and ecological impacts. What the Council produced in the Chum Salmon Bycatch Preliminary Draft EIS is deficient. The DEIS does not reflect a reasonable range of alternatives as were required by NEPA. It does not include reductions in bycatch as required by National Standard 9, does not include social, cultural, and human health impacts, does not account for the decades of chum salmon bycatch, does not meet the NIMS and the Council's obligations of the federal trust responsibility to the tribes. The DEIS is biased towards commercial fishing interests and their financial burden. There is little meaningful evaluation on foreseeable impacts to harvesting communities on the rivers and our financial impact. TCC urges the Council to modify its alternatives by integrating Indigenous knowledge and tribal comments from affected in-river communities pursuant to National Standard 2 and develop alternatives that would result in actual reductions in chum bycatch from recent PSC levels. TCC requests the Council to require additional alternative analysis that include PSC limits on chum bycatch across all alternatives and with limits below 200,000 in order to meaningfully reduce chum bycatch, including a PSC limit of 0. The proposed PSC limits in Alternative 2 would only impose bycatch limits during the worst chum salmon years on record. The 91 to 2022 average chum bycatch limit is 188 chum salmon, 188,000. Why are most of the PSC limits in Alternative 2 above this long-term average? Because the DEIS is skewed to favor commercial industry by only looking at averages for the last 10-year average when PSC is higher and does not take into account escapement or impact of subsistence harvest opportunity. Overall, all alternatives in the DEIS are equivalent to no action and insufficient to NEPA. TCC proposes a new alternative to time and area closures to be considered in addition to a PSC cap. The migration of chum salmon and higher proportions of Western Alaska chum bycatch in the B season and Cluster Area 1 support further evaluation to ease choke points for returning chum salmon and allows immature chum salmon to escape so that they might return to spawn in the future years. Our tribes want action now. Conservation continues to rest on the backs of tribes. Tribes are willing to give up fishing if it means our future generations can fish. We teach our people to take only what you need without waste. The bounties our people receive are treated with respect so that they will continue to return in abundance, compared to the waste and disrespect of salmon as bycatch by the commercial fishing industry. Salmon cannot recover if they cannot make it to the spawning grounds. Every salmon counts, and there's a critical need to err on the side of conservation during severely depressed escapements. If left unaddressed, our people are facing a health and wellness emergency that threatens our way of life. If the council does not help us conserve this resource, we will be forced to take legal action as well as endangered species considerations or advocating for the Secretary of Interior to intervene. Last month, TCC passed Resolution 2024-29, directing TCC to pursue legal action to address the Yukon River salmon crisis, which may include addressing the systemic barriers and failures in the current management systems and broadly improve the accountability for the impacts of commercial fishing on tribal subsistence rights. Thank you. Masicho.
Good morning. My name is Vivian Korthuis. I serve as the Chief Executive Officer for the Association of Village Council Presidents. I am Yupik and a member of the Imanic tribe. Thank you for holding this public meeting and for allowing us to engage in this very important discussion on chum, salmon bycatch, and the draft EIS. I want to thank and recognize our consortium tribes, the AVCP Executive Board, Subsistence Committee, who are here to offer testimony. AVCP serves the 56 federally recognized tribes on the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta and Bering Sea coast. Today, I will address 3 topics. First, I will talk about what is happening in our villages. Second, I will address the draft EIS. Lastly, I will close my comments. Question, what is happening in our villages? What is happening in our villages is not acceptable. We have heard in the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs hearing in Bethel and the last 4 years of the AVCP annual convention, something needs to be done to address the salmon crisis. Our communities rely on the Yukon-Kuskokwim rivers and the Bering Sea for food. Salmon is our way of life. We are salmon people. It is our cultural identity. Right now, our cultural identity is under attack. Our subsistence way of life is being questioned. We will not sit silently and watch this happen. The situation is dire. In my opinion, we are witnessing a humanitarian crisis in our own state of Alaska. This crisis is not fast like a war, but a slow elimination of not only people and unique indigenous cultures, but a whole ecosystem that supports salmon on the North American continent and adjacent seas and oceans. We are here at this meeting to ask the council for your help. We need your help in every one of our villages. We cannot survive without you. It is important that the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council recognize its role in helping us and really listen to the testimonies at this meeting. We are asking that you make transformative decisions to help our communities, just as the council should help any other stakeholder that comes before you. If the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council can't or won't help us, then just tell us straight up. Regarding the environmental impact statement, the draft EIS considered several alternatives. It seems to be leaning towards the status quo. That means no significant change or actions by the council. This is also not acceptable. There needs to be significant reductions below the current measures. Recently, Regional Administrator Curlin wrote a letter to the chair. The letter dated March 29, 2024, In that letter, Mr. Kurland urged the council to pursue a higher range of alternatives in line with the NEPA process. We agree. He also urged the council to consider options for including Chum's limit below 200,000. While we would prefer it to be zero, we urge that it needs to be reduced. In our view of the report, we did not see engagement with our communities. I did not see conversations with our elders or tribes. I did not see the use of indigenous knowledge to help support or defer any alternative presented. This is not acceptable. My ask is that the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council meet and come to Bethel to hear directly from our tribes and communities about the salmon crash and the EIS. Change needs to happen. The status quo cannot be continued. Our communities are suffering and hungry. Our resources are wasted and our cultural identity is dying. Yesterday, I listened to testimony at the advisory council meeting. A gentleman who testified on behalf of 4 vessels said, "We have enough management to sink a ship." There was a reaction from the majority of the advisory council members in a light way. They were laughing. As I listened to the rest of his testimony, I thought of how this impacts our communities. I thought, we have enough management that we have sunk our salmon, at least in the AYK region. The Advisory Council and North Pacific Fisheries Management Council also needs to hear us when we say, we have enough management that we are sinking not only the salmon, but our communities. As a council, please do not ignore what you hear from even the smallest of our villages. I am asking that you take everything we say into consideration when you make your decisions. In closing, our villages in the AYK region are experiencing a devastating salmon crash. It has touched every household and every family in our region. Spring breakup is about a month away. This time of the year is when we start preparing to put salmon away for food. Are we going to see yet another season with not enough salmon? My question to the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council is, are we going to have another year of empty freezer bags? And I've shared with you a freezer bag at your table, and I'd like you to use it as a reminder of our discussions about the salmon crash in the AYK region. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Bear with me if I stumble on my words, as English is my second language. I am Melanie Bahnke. I am a tribal member of the native village of Savunga, and I live in Nome. My Laloamka side hails from Sioux City, Iowa, originally. I hold a master's degree in rural development, and I am the president of Kawerak, formed 51 years ago by the region's tribes to advance the social, economic, cultural, and political conditions in the Bering Strait region of Alaska. Kawerak is the tribal consortium in the Bering Strait region of Alaska, an area with 20 federally recognized tribes and 16 communities. The region's population is about 9,000 people, of which 75% are Alaska Native. In a state with an out-migration trend, our population is growing. I come from a long line of people who have thrived for thousands of years in the Arctic, one of the harshest climates in the world. We rely on the land, air, sea, and rivers to sustain us. My people were the first stewards of our natural resources before federal and state management systems were imposed on us. I am the great-granddaughter of a reindeer herder, daughter of a bowhead whaling captain, sister of commercial halibut fishermen, auntie to many, a wife married into a family of commercial crabbers, and most importantly, I am the mother of 3 beautiful children who I hope, along with their descendants, will have the opportunity to live and thrive on our homelands, carrying on the legacy of our ancestors. For this to happen, we need sustainability of the resources we rely on. Toward that end, I'm here to testify about Chum Bycatch in solidarity with my fellow leaders of consortia from the interior and YK regions. In our region, in addition to the declines in king and chum salmon, we face additional threats such as erosion, severe weather events such as the recent Typhoon Merbok, increased shipping traffic, a high cost of living, low employment opportunities, compounding a housing shortage, and social issues related to intergenerational trauma brought on by the federal government's attempts to eradicate our cultural identity. Our challenges are real. And now we face fighting for our core identity as a people, our subsistence way of life. It's not the first time either. Yankee whalers and Russian fur traders nearly decimated whales, walrus, and other species of marine mammals, whose numbers are still rebounding only after protections were put in place. This time we fight for salmon, a core source of food security for us in our region. We've been experiencing chum declines spanning the last 3 to 4 decades, including having had to resort to a Tier 2 fishery. After decades of federal and state management of the resource, this is our reality. Kawerak has provided written comments outlining our specific technical requests. In short, we would like to see an expansion in the alternatives. Most importantly, we want to see the range of PSC limits the Council is considering dramatically reduced. What has been presented falls short of addressing the chum declines meaningfully. We really appreciate and support the AP unanimously passing a recommendation considering lower bycatch limits. This is a positive step forward if implemented. As for industry, I'm keenly aware of the benefit, especially the benefit our CDQs bring. They contribute greatly to their member communities. Our organization partners with them on many initiatives, and my mother recently retired from our CDQ. I myself personally benefited in my pursuit of higher education as a scholarship recipient. I'm not here to bite one of the hand that feeds us, so to say. However, CDQs were created to amplify our prosperity, to supplement, but not replace the security afforded by our subsistence lifestyle, the fabric of our cultural identity. This isn't about trying to kill the industry or even attack it. It shouldn't be us against them. We need to find a way to coexist and ensure our people who have relied on salmon for thousands of years do not become an endangered species ourselves. We live where we do because of our subsistence lifestyle. Economic benefits of industry should not be put ahead of, nor come at the cost of our subsistence harvests. We need to find a sustainable balance and adjust as needed. The burden of conservation must be shared. I believe we all have a goal of abundance. For that to be realized, sacrifices must be made and shared. Until salmon stocks rebound, we need to work together, not against each other. Please develop and adopt dramatically reduced PSC limits to give chum a chance to rebound and afford our people the opportunity to carry on our way of life, the core of our identity. Thank you especially for allowing us to testify out of order today to accommodate our travel requirements, and grateful to have been given an opportunity to provide you our recommendations and our perspectives. Thank you.